Welcome to the next video of the Dusty Hobo Moto channel. In this video, I'm going to change out that countershaft sprocket that's making noise with the hooks in it. And hopefully that corrects a lot of the issue that I'm having. I can hear something that's not quite right in there, and I'm hoping this takes care of it. We will find out. Come along and let's swap out the countershaft sprocket on a 2014 Suzuki DL650 V Strom 650 adventure motorcycle. With no more time spent, let's get into it. There's three of these screws. They're 4mm to get the cover off. I'm going to use a pointed one. I've already cracked them loose, just for the sake of accomplishing. Got that out of the way. Let me get a socket so I can take these loose. Those are 8mm screws out of the way. Poor old hooligan there. He's a little bit flea bit this morning. He's getting a bath later today. Get that thing out of the way, the sensor thing. That's just what most things need, is just another sensor. 6mm. Crack it loose. And get the sensor assembly out of the way. Now we're down to the nut. I'm going to grab a chisel. At this point, it's kind of not super light out here. There's a the washer's been bent over, so I've got to carefully bend that washer up. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera off while I mess with that, so I don't mess up this washer any more than I have to, and be patient with it, get it loose. Then once I get that done and get a socket, I'll turn the camera back on and we'll finish pulling the sprocket off. But gonna need to also loosen up the chain probably a little bit, and that includes loosening up the rear axle. When I get to that point to start working on stuff again, after I get this loose, I will see if we can roll that around. We can get a better picture. How about right there? It's bent over right there. So I'm going to get that loose, get that straightened again where I can unthread the nut, and then I'll turn the camera back on. All right, the next step is to go ahead and loosen up the chain a little bit. Loosen that up. We'll see if that's good enough. It's got quite a bit of slack in it now, so. Look out, hooligan. Good boy. All right. Since I happen to own an electric 1/2-inch gun, well, that red Loctite was on there pretty good. Between the red Loctite. So basically, once you get the nut off, there's that smash washer that goes underneath it. And then, with any luck, this thing here will kind of slide off. I've never done this before, so we're going to learn together. Maybe I didn't put quite enough slack in the chain, because if there's enough slack in the chain won't, and the sprocket can't slide off. But the sprocket, it's right there at coming off. It just won't quite do it. Slide it back a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put a little more slack in the chain, and then the sprocket I can work it out of there. Let's see if that's enough to get that chain up and over. I think it is. Yeah, there it goes. Now will the sprocket, yeah, the sprocket will come out. And if you could see how these teeth are bent, you'll see how they're pushed forward. And that's what I believe is causing the harshness. I bought a new Suzuki countershaft sprocket. You could get the part number online. It's 27510-20 Frank 21. But anyway, that's the new countershaft sprocket. From Suzuki. 15 teeth, 525 chain. If you look, you can see the bend in those teeth and how straight the new sprocket teeth are. Let's see if we can get that thing up in there. Greasy old chain back on. Greasy old chain back on. try again and again. We can rotate it backwards just a little bit and on it goes. And crud that's caked up in. Okay, greasy old chain's back on. I'm gonna get a little cleaner and clean this up a little bit with some like brake clean and a super clean rag and clean my hands up. Put a little Loctite on there and lock this nut back down. I'll turn the camera back on when I get to that point. I would like to say, I guess real quick, the torque on this nut is 105 foot-pounds, according to the Suzuki service manual. We'll go ahead and put the crush washer back in. Or I call it a crush washer because you bend the tab over to lock the nut in place. And I've wiped the shaft off with some alcohol. Okay. I wiped this off with some alcohol to get it nice and clean. My Loctite's almost gone, but we only need to put a little bit on there. It's probably way too much. Way plenty good. Thread the nut back on by hand. Put that dude back in gear. We'll just run it up a little bit. Okay. And then I have the torque wrench set. There we are. Okay, now I'll bend the tab back over, put the sensor back in, and we'll be good to go, hopefully. Set the, obviously tension the chain back up. We have a new sprocket. And if you've been riding motorcycles a while, you'll kind of know that this front sprocket wears a lot quicker than the rear one. That's a common issue. Now, you can buy an aftermarket sprocket for less. I chose to go with a factory Suzuki sprocket. They're not that much more. And I'm happy with the stock gearing. If you want to go fast, the stock gearing's not the greatest. But the bike will go as fast as I need it to go. So I'm good. That ought to keep it from backing off. Plus it's Loctited. I can't see that ever coming loose. Okay. Now we have this little doohickey, the speed sensor wheel. Goes back on. Tighten it up good. That dude's on there. Now they marked it, but I can't imagine, all it knows is that's turning, so it's not timed or anything, so that's not a big deal. Okay, Now all I have to do is set the tension on the chain and put the cover back on. So this is where I'm going to leave you. I think that's enough. That most people, if they've never done a countershaft sprocket or they're intimidated by it, they could see that it can be done fairly easily. The socket to get the countershaft nut off was 1.25 inches. If you didn't have a torque wrench, auto parts stores loan those out. You could go to the auto parts store and just give them a deposit and then get one and use it. Or just tighten it down by hand is fine. And if you don't have an electric gun, that's okay, or impact. You can get that off with a large breaker bar, hinge heads type tool, or ratchet should break that loose. It's not that tight. It's 105 foot-pounds. Other than that, I'm going to tighten up the chain, adjust the chain out, get it tensioned, put the sprocket cover back on. Well, if you stuck with me to the end, thank you very much. If you would, consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell so you know when I upload new content, and giving me a big thumbs up. Other than that, I'll see you out on the road or in the next video.